بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم نحمده ونصلي على رسول الكريم السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. Alhamdulillah, we praise Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, ask him send peace and blessing of his beloved and our beloved Sayyidina Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. There's a hadith narrated by Hani. There's a Hani here, that's why. The freed slave Osman radiallahu anhu, that he said that once he was with Osman radiallahu anhu, that when he stood at a grave and he cried until his beard became wet. And when it was said to him that when Jannah is mentioned and Jahannam is mentioned, the fire is mentioned, you don't cry, or you don't cry so much. But this makes you cry. So he said that Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam said that the qabr, the grave, is the first stage of the hereafter. If someone is saved, إِنَّ الْقَبْرَ أَوُّلُ مَنَازِلِ الْآخِرَةِ, that the grave is the first stage of the hereafter. فَإِن نَجَى مِنْهُ فَمَا بَعْدُ أَيْسَرُ مِنْهُ, that if he's saved from it, then what is after it is easier. وَإِلَّمْ يَنْجُ, that if he's not saved from it, فَمَا بَعْدُ أَشَدُّ مِنْهُ, then whatever is after it is more severe. It doesn't get better, it gets more severe afterwards. And there's also mentioned that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, مَا رَأَيْتُ مَنْظَرًا قَطُّ إِلَّا وَالْقَبْرُ أَفْضَلُ مِنْهُ, that I have not seen a scene more like a scene that is more frightening than the scene of the grave. So we sort of have finished we sort of at the end of the book probably have another two. I'm summarizing the last few sections. Actually, the last section mainly consists of admonitions and experiences and the words of many pious people. So the actual topics related to the grave, Ahwaalul Quboor, the horrors of the grave, the descriptions of the grave, those are like we've covered already. Now it's at the end, there's a different maw'izahs and admonitions and warnings and experiences and things that wise people have said, poetry related to the grave. So we're not going to go into all of that, just a few of them. It's narrated from Malik bin Dinar, who said that I went with Hassan bin Abi Sinan, that we went Nazurul Maqabir, we went to visit graves. When we were like above the graves, on a sort of like on a higher ground to overlook the graves, then the ibrah, taking the lesson from that, sort of overwhelmed, and Malik bin Dinar, that is, Hassan bin Abi Sinan, Malik bin Dinar is the one narrating it. He turned to me and said, "Oh Yahya, this is the hadi asakirul mauta. These are the asakir, literally the armies, but like the groups and detachments of the dead, and they are waiting, or they may be basically they're waiting upon the rest of us to join them, and then they're waiting until everybody joins, and then a shouter or a caller will call out, meaning the Israfil alayhi salam, and then they will be فَإِذَا هُمْ قِيَامٌ يَنْظُرُونَ, and then they will come out of their graves. They will come out of the graves looking. And then he said that Malik, he put his hand on his head, and he وَجَعَلَ يَبْكِي, because he just cried when he heard that admonition. Like I mentioned something in Jummah, that you have to have a vision before you can make an intention. You have to have a vision of akhirah before you can form a good intention, because it doesn't form just by itself. It forms when a person, he constantly focuses on akhirah, he knows and is reminded by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then he can form a good niyyah. Like, why would you form a good niyyah? Because you want to please Allah. That means you have to know Allah. Why would that matter? Because you have to stand before Allah. There's accountability, there's judgment. You want to please Him when you stand before Him on the day of judgment, that He be pleased with you. So therefore, like, you have to have so these people, when you read them, why grown men, some of them are, you hear Umar radiallahu anhu crying in Salat, in Fajr, because you can hear he's crying from many safs. Can anybody accuse Umar radiallahu anhu of being, effeminate? Or, can anybody say that about Umar out of all the people? No, you can't. Of course you can't. He was a man's man, as they say. But Umar used to cry. Out of what? Because the heart was softened. The heart gets softened when you make dhikr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala so much, person remembers Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because zikr has that effect on the heart, that it makes the person's heart. The person is always in remembrance, like Umar ibn Khattab, this Sahaba of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, being in the company of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the heart is polished and the heart is softened through the name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Then it doesn't take, and when the heart becomes hard, then what happens? Then a person has this, the person doesn't attend that majalis of dhikr, doesn't attend the majalis of remembrance. What happens to the heart? Then it says, it becomes hard. I'm getting away with it. It's all right. This is when the heart becomes hard, then it starts to think like this. Like, nothing's happening to me. I'm doing all the wrong things. And happens, like I got away with it. This deception, delusion comes in the person. He actually he starts, they're doing the wrong things. We're doing the wrong things, not they. The they is us. I don't know who the other they are, but I'm doing the wrong thing. And I'm getting away with it. So the heart becomes hard. But these people, you read about them, not just one, it's pages and pages and pages of this Shaykh and this Imam and this from the Salaf, from the Sahaba and Tabi'in, Tabi'in, all the Imams and so forth. The list is very long and each of their experiences are being recorded. That when they see the grave or they hear a little bit of one sentence, we hear a 1 hour talk about qabr, azab of the qabr, 40 durus we had, nothing changed. The guy even talking, the guy listening, we feel very, very little. And these people hear one sentence, he just said that this is the army of the dead, the armies of the dead, the groupings of the dead, and they're waiting. Or they're being made to wait for the remainder of who is from alive. يُنْتَظَرُ بِهَا مِنْ بَقِي مِنَ الْأَحْيَاءِ. So they are being made to wait for the one the rest of us are going to join them, to take our spot with them. ثُمَّ يُصَاحُ بِهِمْ صَيْحًا فَإِذَا هُمْ قِيَامٌ يَنْظُرُونَ فَوَضَعَ مَا. And then he cried. Just from that, it mentions another incident. Hussein al-Ju'fi said that a man came, أتى رجل قبر محفورا فطلع في اللحد فبكى واشتد بكاء. Someone came, and the people in the past, their hearts were clean. So he comes to the qabr of he just looked at the qabr, the lahad. So there's two types of graves. One is a shiq or shaq, which is like a trench, which is just qabrs that we have in Australia. That within the grave, there's another grave, like a trench in the middle where the body is put. Then we cover that from the top. And then there's lahad, which is a preferred way of doing it, which is like an L shape. So it's dug sideways, and the body is put, and then a wall is made of unbaked bricks or covered up, and then he filled the rest of the grave. And so he saw the lahad, he saw the grave, and he looked into it, and he started crying, and he cried a lot. He goes, قال أنت والله بيتي حقه. He goes, I swear by Allah that you're really my real home is you. You're my real abode. My real home is you. Each one of us has to think about his grave, because we're going to be there one day. That's our real home. We're going to be longer there than Doncaster. So we're going to be there than in Doncaster or wherever else in Melbourne. We're going to spend longer time in the qabr than we spend in our houses probably. Allah Alam when Qiyamah is, but there's people been waiting in their graves for thousands and thousands of years. So that means we're going to be, if you go by that, at least, and there's a long gap between us and Qiyamah. Wallahu Alam when it is, we don't know. But most likely we're going to be there longer than the time that we spent. But not many of us, or few of us, are concerned about it. He mentioned that Abdullah bin Musa, that he said that Hassan bin Salih, that when he climbed the minaret, so to give adhan, he went up high, and then he looked and he saw the maqabir, the graves, the cemetery was there, and he saw the sun moving across, the sunlight moving across it. He shouted and he fainted. Just for a moment, he just noticed it, and the way the sun was moving, because probably waiting for the salat time, keeping track of the shadow, probably Zuhur or Asr or something. And he said that people had to carry him down. This is people whose hearts are awake. They're not in ghafla. When they get the smallest reminder, it affects them. It affects them. When they hear the reminder is made, there's no long speeches required for people like this. The heart has become soft. The heart's become clean. This is not. You probably meet people like this. People exist like this in the world. Where we find them, I don't know, but they exist. Like my mother was mentioning about her uncle. He said people were lifting something heavy. He was a very pious person. And as we do, they're all carrying everything together and said, Allah. People say, Allah, Ya Allah, or something. He fainted when he heard it. He heard the name of Allah, he fainted. Like, there's people like that. They have that much connection with Allah, that much that they're reminded like that it goes to the depths of the hearts, For us, Allah help us. We have to make dua and make istighfar, and we're very far from that reality. He mentions another narration that one of the person, he visited the grave. He said, وقف رجل على قبر قد بني بناء حسن. Someone went to a grave and beautiful grave was made. And then he was like amazed by its beauty, how beautiful the grave. You'll see those marble ones, those very fancy ones. And in the night he had a dream, and someone came to him in the dream, and he read this poem. أعجبك القبر وحسن البناء والجسم فيه قد حواه البلاء فاسأل الأموات عن حالهم ينبئك عن ذاك ذهاب الجلاء. Translate. You are wondering, you're astonished by the grave and its beauty of its construction. But the body that is in it, it holds within itself trials. Like the body that is in it, it's held, like it's covered in trials. Bala is like with the calamities and misfortune or difficulties or trials or tribulations. Ask the dead about their condition. Ask the dead about their condition, and they will inform you about yumbik an dhahab al-jala. They will inform you about how would you say translate that? Jala. Yeah. There's different meanings of jala, but yeah.
We've got a return.
If the Arabs can't explain to me, then then we're in trouble. We're in trouble. Sorry, Ani, put you on the spot. Jala means polishing, perfections, refinements. It could mean also, in this context, they inform you about how all the refinements they'll go, like all the things that will go, all the good things will disappear, all the refinements disappear. So if you look at their condition, you're worried about, you're looking about the nice building on top, the point poem. You're looking at the beautiful grave, you're forgetting about what's happening inside, because what's on top of the grave is irrelevant. What's on top of the grave is irrelevant. What's a condition inside, and that is only dictated by the deeds of the person. So therefore, when we go into the grave, the questions, we did that chapter on the questions of the grave. Who is your Rabb? What is your deen? Who is this man? Different variations there. We went through a whole chapter of the questions in the grave. The wordings are different slightly. Who is your Rabb? The question is not asked who is your Ilah. The question is who is your Rabb? Who did you take, the one that was providing for you, taking care of you? Of course, Ilah and Rabb is the same, in the sense that the Rabb is Ilah, Ilah is Rabb. But the question is asked, who is your Rabb? Who did you take as the one that took care of all your needs, provided for you, created you, nourished you, and so forth in this world? What is your deen? Right? What is your deen? And who is this man? So there's people, a vision will be shown, or Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam's vision will be shown to them and said, who is this? It doesn't need fiber optics. Allah subhanahu doesn't need anything in this dunya. A vision will be shown, Rasulullah will be shown. Who is this man? Those who have the sunnah, those who have a connection with Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, they'll be able to. Those who say the kalima la ilaha Muhammadur Rasulullah, those who say believe in Rasulullah as a prophet, they'll be able to truly believe, then they'll be able to say. Now, in the grave, there's no questions about which nationality. All nationalities are gone. All right? You're from a rich country, you're from a poor country, you have an Australian passport, you have a whatever else, but don't say the name, don't fill the gaps. You fill in the gaps. A passport from such and such a country, it makes no difference. In the qabr, which nationality, which your skin color, makes no difference. It doesn't even actually matter in this dunya that which jama'ah you're with. There's no one there with you. You're by yourself. Your iman, la ilaha illallah. Who's your prophet? And what is your deen? What is the way that you chose in this life that you be? That are you practicing Islam or not? Did you take that as a way of life? Your deen means way of life. We translate as religion, but it's not a very good translation. Deen is the way of life, the thing that you chose in your life to live your life according to. You could say religion, but religion is very limiting in its translation. It doesn't actually give the full justice to the word deen. Maliki Yawmiddin, Allah is the owner of the day of deen. And deen here means what? One of the ulama explained that deen comes from dain. Dain means debts. The dues that you have to pay. What is due upon you? What is required of you to? So what is required of us? So the questions in the qabr, that's where one of the brother, he was here and he in this mosque, he said, he asked his wife when he got married, he asked her, she said, what are the questions in the qabr? One of the she said, answer the question in the qabr was that who's your imam? They're like A'immah al-Arba'a, Imam Hanifa, Imam Shafi'i. Obviously that's not one of the questions in the qabr, but it's good thought, but there's no question like that in the qabr. The thing is that these questions, they should dictate our life, because everything else will disappear. We're not going to be caring about what's happening in this world, really. We have to get these right. We have to know Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, recognize Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, love Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, obey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We have to recognize Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, follow his sunnah, inside and outside, not just outside. Sunnah doesn't mean that I learn what is sunnah and then I start calling everybody a bidati, mubtadi', This is like some people's definition of what sunnah. No, sunnah is you have to embody yourself internally, externally, but Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam brought. And for those who do bid'ah, then there's a way to deal with them. But like sunnah is like to pray like Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. I'm not talking about how you move your fingers and so forth. To pray like him, So to pray, how Rasulullah prayed. Does anybody bother to even like try to embody that? One person came in this masjid. He grabbed. It's 2 months he was praying salat, and he grabbed Bukhari Sharif off the shelf, and he came to my father, Rahimahulla, and said, "Look at this." He just started praying. Then my father said, in Bukhari Sharif, there's a section on the turban of Rasulullah, the cap of Rasulullah, the clothing of Rasulullah. Why don't you pick that? Why are you picking this one to cause a fight? Like you pull that as one hadith, and it's not like we're not practicing it, but you decided to make this a fight. The sunnah was never supposed to be a fight. So who is Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam? Do people actually know who Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam is and what he stood for, what his life was, what his days, how he spent his nights, how he spends his days? I was dealing with some young people. They were going to join some extremist group. I mean, I say extremist, and I don't mean like people that are practicing deen or something like that. I'm saying really like they're off their head. And when I talked to them, I said, like, this is many years ago, I'm talking about 7-8 years ago, and I said, do you reckon that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam would join them and sit with them? Do you reckon you don't know what the group is, so you can't confirm to me. I said, do you reckon that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam will go sit with them? And he said, what image do you have of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam? Because the hadith says this. It's amazing. The third question is not asked of who is your Nabi. Because who is this man? Who is this man? And that you have to recognize him. And you've never seen Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam in real life. So that means you have to have such a deep connection with Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam that when you actually see him, you recognize him before you've only read about him and you know him, but there's a love that is there for Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that you know his akhlaq, that you recognize him by his akhlaq, you recognize him by his behavior. We know who Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam is because the Quran tells us who Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam is. إِنَّكَ لَعَلَىٰ خُلُقٍ عَظِيمٍ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us who Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam is. So we recognize him. So therefore, so that's the three questions, and those questions are we're all going to be asked that, and may Allah give us tawfiq to answer it. Amen. We shouldn't be giving ourselves the pat on the back and already we've made it there. I was reading about Maulana Shah Bukhari rahmatullah alayhi, and I think if I remember correctly, Mufti Shafi Sahib, Mufti Taqi Usmani's father, Rahimahulla, he came back from Medina. Actually, he saw Rasulullah in his dream. He said, when you go back to India or Pakistan at that time, I don't know, but he said, when you go back, give Shah al-Bukhari, one of those anti-colonial ulama who struggled and gave speeches. And he used to give bayan, a talk from Isha till Fajr. From Isha till Fajr, and never repeat anything twice. You know, I mean, he's an amazing person. He said that, I think it was Mufti Shafi Sahib rahmatullahi alayhi, that he had the dream in Medina Munawwara. He said, when he goes see Shah al-Bukhari, he goes, rahmullah, he goes, give him my salam. He said, when I went to him and I gave him salam, I said, I saw your Rasul in a dream, and he said, give salam. He said he fell on the ground, he rolled like a little child, crying. He goes, I realized he was a true lover of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. You know, so the way he cried, they keep it in, they keep it inside, the love for Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So these are the questions. And what is your deen? So Islam, it cannot be just, so may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but all the things will disappear, melt away. All our associations, groupings, all our things in this dunya that we try to align ourselves with. I was in Tongish, about 99, Haji Abdul Wahab Sahib rahmatullah, he passed away, and a great da'i, and he said, whoever said I'm Bengali, make tawbah. Whoever said I'm Pakistani, make tawbah. Whoever said I'm Arab, make tawbah. You are the ummah of Rasulullah, because when you go in the grave, all of these distinctions, all of these will be gone. So if we're making something, we're putting ourselves in a category or a group, but that doesn't mean it's pleasing to Allah. Am I in the group of Muslims or not? Am I in the category of Muslims or not? Am I in the category of the followers of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam or not? We don't know. We don't know. We don't know what our condition will be. Therefore, we have to be scared about these questions. And they're not going to, like Osman radiallahu anh, is Sahabi of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He's the third Khalifa, he's promised Jannah already. And he looks at a grave, starts crying. So, you know, and which Qabristan is he looking at? Baqi. In Medina Munawwara, he's looking at the graves in Medina Munawwara. He's with Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He spent 20 years with Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He's one of the Sabiqun al-Awwalun, one of the early Muslims. Second day or third day he became Muslim. He's like one of the first 10 to become like Muslim. Abu Bakr radiallahu anh brought one group one day, the next group he's from that group, second day. But he's worried. So then we have much more to worry about. We have much more to worry about. Therefore, inshallah, we finished. There's many admonitions. But one thing you notice in all these stories, these people, their hearts were, they see the graves, the ibrah was instantaneous. We've become hard-hearted. And there was one incident I was going to read, which I marked, but I slipped. There's one last one for the night. I don't think I'll be able to find it now. Yeah, this is an old lady, muta'abbida, ajuz muta'abbid fi Abdul Qais. Abdul Qais, the tribe, there was an old lady who used to worship. Someone told her, "Utibat fi kasrat ityaniha." She was reprimanded for visiting the graveyard too much. She said, he said, "Inna al-qalb al-qasi idha jafa lam yulinu illa rusum bila." And she said that the hearts become hard, and nothing softens it except for basically coming to the graveyard. These things is what softens it, and that's why I keep coming back, because the hearts are becoming hard. The only way to actually soften is like that, what I mentioned at the start. The hearts are hard, and they specifically went to treat their hearts. They went to treat their hearts to soften the heart. So may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us understanding and tawfiq to practice. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala purify our hearts. And may Allah give us tawfiq to answer the questions that all of us have to face, if we can't get away from them, that we answer them in a way that is pleasing to Allah. Subhana rabbika rabbil izzati amma yasifun, wa salamun ala al-mursaleen, walhamdulillahi rabbil alameen.
Can I have a question, please?
Yeah.
So, as a bottom line is, if these few questions, they're like 4 questions, but if we get past, inshallah, so the trial and tribulation will not be happening in qabr.
Well, that's what it said in the riwayah, isn't it? In the narration, that it goes, after this, everything is easier.
Inshallah.
So once you get past that, inshallah. Wallahu alam. We'll find out. So we're all going to find out. So inshallah, inshallah we'll find out.
Nobody will come back and tell us.
Yeah, we had a chapter that there were people in dreams. They saw them. Said, how was it? So they sort of did tell us. Allah alam. Allah give us understanding and tawfiq.